To be honest,
at the top here,
yeah,
work beefinator. That's the name of your, that's the host name of your box?
Yeah.
I love it.
My personal computer is the beefinator, so this is the work beefinator.
Hello, welcome to Bits and Booze. My name is Scott Chacon. I'll be your host. I am the CEO of GitButler. I was the co-founder of GitHub, and I happen to be a certified wine expert. So in this series, we're gonna try to shake things up a little bit. We'll be drinking some wine, we'll be talking about wine, and we'll be learning about the father of Git. And I don't mean Linus, I mean the tool that he was using that inspired him to create Git in the first place. And it's called BitKeeper. I set up a BitKeeper server. We'll be checking stuff out. We'll be using it how this was used on the Linux kernel at the very advent of Git. If you want to know why Git was born, watch this episode. The reason why distributed version control systems essentially exist at all, I think, right, which is BitKeeper. I've never actually seen anybody use BitKeeper, and so I thought it'd be really fun if we download an old version of it, actually do some development on GitButler with it, and get an idea of what distributed version control systems look like in V1. Today, we are still on the French wine train.
It's wonderful.
We're gonna go again to a red French wine. This time we're gonna have a Pinot Noir. And so what I want to point out on this is they do put Bourgogne on that. So they do say this is a Burgundy wine. Usually that doesn't happen. I actually couldn't find a really good example of a Burgundy, but this is close enough. But it does not put the grape. The grape is Pinot Noir. Pretty much everything from Burgundy is Pinot Noir. So we're gonna open this up, and it's Côte de Nuit. That cannot be how you pronounce that, but it's something like that if you're French.
It looks like a D's nuts kind of joke.
Côte de Nuit. Does anybody know what côte means?
Like a brook?
It's a slope.
A slope.
Right? So this is a high slope of the night.
Right.
And a lot of times you'll find wineries on slopes, especially in Europe because it's colder. So like if you think about California or something, it's a little bit warmer. It's way further south than most of Europe.
So it's catching the sun for
catching the sun for longer. So they would almost always, and the higher that you go, the more you'll find wineries on slopes.
Thank you.
No problem, no problem, no problem. This is in the Burgundy region. It has it's in wood generally. You'll have like some woody sort of, earthy notes. Let's talk about BitKeeper. So
this program that you made me install.
I made you install.
It's the second program you've got me to install that looks a lot like malware.
First was Pigsy.
Pigsy.
Which I'm like, brew install it, no problem. This one I made you install a package. Like a Mac package. That was like, this is probably malware. And I'm like, ignore that. Go and hit open from the Finder. Make sure that you're just installing this directly, root into your operating system.
I mean, it wasn't even signed by a developer. This could have any number of viruses. But
it probably has
several. It's on my
of them.
work laptop, so I'm not going to worry about it.
How many version control systems in your professional career have you used?
I have used one.
Which one is that?
That might be Git.
A lot of people these days, they've really only ever used Git. I was recently writing up some thoughts about the early days of Git, and I was going across this thing called BitKeeper. And it's really interesting because it's the first version control system that is distributed. That's truly, so before this it was Subversion and Perforce and CVS and all of these things. The way that the Linux kernel was running was not the way that, or a lot of open source systems are running. It was very difficult to use centralized version control systems. The Linux kernel was really struggling with this, of having thousands of developers that were all over the world in different time zones, at different, they did not, you couldn't give everybody commit bits. It had to have this hierarchy of contribution. And so this company was started called BitKeeper, and Linus at first didn't want to use it and then really liked it. And then a lot of people used it. And the only rule was, do not reverse engineer this. So I don't know if you can imagine what free software engineers did as the first thing.
I mean, they looked at what it was doing and reverse engineered it.
Exactly. So they lost their license, they had to stop using it, and so Linus created Git. And so what I thought would be interesting is let's look at what did this tool look like that was the father of Git, really, right? And it's not exactly the same, which is why I think this is interesting. Linus loved BitKeeper. Like he really, really liked it. It was the only version control system he thought all version control systems were complete shit before this. And then he saw it and he used it and he was like, actually, this has value. And when he couldn't use it anymore and people on his team fucked it up, right, with reverse engineering it, he was like, I want something like this, and started creating Git. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So what I've done is gone into the archives. I set up something I call BitButler.
BitButler.
I set up, there we go. It's perfect. It's bk.gitbutler.com. Don't try to access this. I will take it. It's an EC2 instance that I just set up for this. I will take it down immediately. But there's no security on this. It is completely ridiculous. But I wanted to set up a thing and put the GitButler repository into it so that we can do some patches and stuff and see what did this look like to use. You can take that clone command, and this is really the first. This is when clone was a thing. This is where Git got clone, right? Like clone was not what you would do in Subversion or something. You wouldn't clone something. But they were saying essentially checkout is a full copy of whatever you're doing. And this is new at the time. Version control systems did not do this, right? You didn't have every version of everything. So let's clone it. Let's see what it looks like.
Sure. So run this command. This has got a better interface than Git does.
It's actually surprisingly good at times. So let's look at it. List the directory. Let's see what we have.
LS.
Okay. So this is essentially, other than the big BitKeeper directory that's in there.
Yep. That's noticeable.
It is. Yeah. It's not. There's no like BitKeeper ignore file. There's nothing that says don't worry about these. It's a little bit actually in between. If you've like. Not you, you're too young. If you have ever used SCCS or RCS or something like that, it's actually based on that, right?
So if you're really old, you'll have experienced this.
If you're really old, before CVS and Subversion, everything was very file-based. So like RCS and SCCS, they were all, I want to check this file in and check this file out. And so it wasn't really repository or like project-based. It was like, and this is in between. So this is saying, I want to essentially have an RCS style thing of saying this is version 1 of this file and version 2 of this file, but I want to put all of those versions into a change set, and I want to be able to move that over a network or even, as we'll see, locally. So so if you go into, actually, if you list the contents of BitKeeper, I think there is an SCCS directory in there. It's around here somewhere. So essentially what it's doing, it's not like Git, like we learned in the previous episode that we'll link right here. Actually, I don't know. Can we do that where we talked about Git internals, right? Where it's this key value store and it's all snapshots and stuff. This is every file has its own version, and then we're moving sort of combinations of versions of these things around. So, okay, so let's do a little bit of work. Sure. Let's see what it was like, right? Yeah. So this is not that much different than downloading a tarball, really, right? Cool. And opening it up at this point. So let's see, how do we actually modify something? So. What I read from this is that you say bk, so edit something. Let's edit something.
So I'll go vim, readme, and I'll put in by magic, so people know that we do some magical stuff there.
Now let's do bk diff.
bk diff.
And we'll see what's, so it's clear, right?
We've got the addition there.
We have by magic is added. So now what you have to do that's a little bit different than Git is you have to say, I've made changes to this file and I want to comment on it, right?
Right.
And so what you do is you say bk delta.
So bk delta.
Like I've made a change and then the file.
Okay, so then I specify the readme.
Right, because you've only made one. Now, if you've done several, you can say bk delta and it'll say, okay, you've made changes to these 5 files and I can do a comment for the changes to all of this, but let's keep it a little bit simple. So let's say, whatever, magic, right? Whatever the comment is.
So I just type it in here with this
and then
prompt.
enter twice.
Enter twice. Oh, cool.
Okay, so now it's created a new version of this file, right? You were on 1.8, now it's 1.9.
Oh.
Now you can do several of these things, right? But, I mean, we can, or let's just keep it simple. Essentially what would happen is you make all these changes, you record all these changes. You can do lots of different comments on stuff, and then you say, okay, this is a change set. Right?
Right.
And so this is kind of like a commit. So you do bk commit, says, I want to create a change set.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Now, you can use the comments that we saw on all the files, which is what you did, or you can, edit sort of the comments and say, here's the comment for the change set itself. And so let's go ahead and use it because it's simple.
Sure. So do U for use?
Yeah, U for use. Okay, now you have a new change set, right? Okay. So you cloned 1.13, now you have 1.14, that's a change set. The version, but as you'll see, like in this, the version of README is 1.9, right? And so each file has its own version, and then the change sets have its own version, and they're sort of incremented separately.
So How does that work sort of with multiple users working on the same repository? How are there sort of like collisions in sort of
So it's interesting.
file nodes?
Let's try that out. So actually first do BK annotate.
Okay.
This is like the old blame.
So BK annotate. Ooh. I see the Scotch cone has...
Right, so you can see, oh, so do BK annotate readme, so we can do it on a particular file.
So on the readme?
Yeah. So this is, you can see me, right, 1.1 and all these things when I initially imported it. If you go up to where you actually made the change, you'll see probably you in there, right?
This, hang on.
Oh boy.
I've gone, no. My God.
Clear it.
I'm ruining it.
Just do annotate, pipe it through head or something. Let's look at what you did. Head. No, not cap, the Unix command. Do you not know that Unix command? No. Oh my days.
Oh my.
Head and tail are Unix commands that say, give me the top of the file or the bottom of the file. Anyways, this is nice. Anyways, you see there, actually do head dash 20, just so we can, same thing. So we can see the first dash 20. So we can see the first 20 lines, right? Yeah. So here we see Caleb Owens. You can see there, your
by magic changes.
Most of my, you can see 1.6 at some point there, right? You can see 1.1. So this is essentially a blame command that says who did it and what version introduced that line, and yours comes in at 1.8 for this particular file. So great. So we have a thing. So now run BK changes. This is kind of like the git log.
Right. Oh, cool.
And so you can see your new change set that you put in 1.14. You changed a file, but you can see a bunch of stuff that I did actually. You can see me, this cset exclude we can get to, which is sort of a reverse cherry pick, or a bunch of, I did a merge at some point, right, of a pull, and blah, blah, blah. But like, this is essentially what a git log ended up looking like.
Yeah.
Okay, let's push it.
Okay, so just BK push?
BK push.
Boom. That is a better UI.
So exactly, this says, I have a URL, I know what my parent is, right? And it's very interesting. Git has this thing of a bunch of different remotes.
Right.
And BK didn't really have that. BitKeeper had a parent repository. It could be over the network, it could be local.
I see.
Right? And so when you say, I'm gonna clone something, it says, okay, it's sort of a branch, right? Like clone is almost branching in this model. It's saying, I'm going to have a copy of this. This is a new tree that has some new thing. It has some upstream.
Yeah.
When I'm done, and I can do as many local commits and changes that I want to, and when I'm done, I can push this series over to that, and then it'll get everything it didn't have before, right? Let's do a different thing. Let's go back one directory, cd ... and read clone.
So I'll clone this.
We should have done this before pushing, but let's... Right. Take a second. Now, let's go into that. Let's make a different change here and a different change in the first one that conflict. So we can see what it looks like to merge a conflict.
I'll go and change a line in our license. So let's say
FSL 1.2. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Just add some content there. So then it's
BK Delta.
BK Delta.
License.
License. Changed the license.
Right.
And then BK commit.
Right.
And I'll use that.
Yeah.
That was
okay, great. So stop right there.
Yep.
Now let's go into the original one.
So CD back into the bits and booze original.
Yeah, BK.
And I'll edit the same portion of the license.
Exactly.
With some other change.
Okay, so now we've diverged. Now we have merge problems.
Yeah.
Let's delta, BK delta, edit it, commit it, push it.
And
oh boy, what did you do? What did you do?
I did BK delta.
BK delta, the file name. If you do again, if you do BK delta, it's fine. It's fine. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Just go ahead and commit it.
So BK commit.
Yeah. It's like, here's all of these things that nothing changed, but you wanted to record a change for all of them. But it's fine. Who cares? All right. So now you have 1.15 here and 1.15 in the other one.
Right. So there's a conflicting version.
So go ahead and push this. BK push.
BK push.
And now go back to your original one. Now we're the other developer, right?
So the other developer, yeah.
And let's BK pull.
So do BK pull. Ah.
All right. So interesting thing, right?
Yeah.
It pulls from this other tree.
Yep.
It tries to do an automatic merge, which was a thing that didn't really exist at the time, right? It was people were doing patch and merge, or like patch and diff, and trying to do stuff, and it was very manual to do stuff.
Right.
This is one of the first things that would really try to be good about doing smart merging, right?
So
it was kind of magical at the time.
Yeah. So this is sort of the first time you saw like three-way mergings being used to resolve this stuff.
Exactly. So it was very smart about going through the history and saying, here's a three-way merge. So now do a question mark, because this is kind of an interesting sort of interactive feature that BitKeeper
so this is a little interactive prompt.
Now you're in interactive mode, right? Because you're pulling in, and it's like you have a merge conflict. Now let's figure out how to sort of apply these change sets to what you have.
So do just a question mark like that.
Yep. So now it gives you all of your options, and it tells you kind of how you typically want to deal with this, right? At the bottom it says here's typical command sequence is E and then C, but let's do F. F is a graphical three-way merge that it'll help you do.
Oh, that's cool. So do F.
This is cool, right? We have this cool tickle DK sort of version of this three-way merge, and it's like here you did ASD whatever on one side and some other changes on the other side, and then you can click down here on the unmerged part and say here's how I actually want to merge it. So you'll see that this isn't as sophisticated as some of the Git merging tools that we have now, where it's like, okay, here's left and right. How do you want to do this, right?
Yeah.
It's just unmerged. Like here's like throw in something here.
So I've got to just look at these.
Yeah.
And
now you have to figure it out, right? So let's put in whatever you want there.
So I'll put in just some resolution.
Yeah.
Cool. And then what do I hit?
So click here. Or press
here?
escape. Yep. And then go up to the top. I think file. There's like a file save or something. Yeah.
Okay. And
okay.
save.
So you're done. Okay. Boom.
Okay.
Now you're done, right?
Awesome.
So again, you can hit E. Actually, you can probably hit E here. It'll just open up the file in Vim, and then it would give you kind of the same thing.
Much better.
But you have your resolution here. So let's, like, you could do it this way. There's a graphical thing, but let's get out of this and just say, okay, let's commit it. So you do capital C, and that commits. Again, there's 100 things you can do here.
Yeah. So this has got a.
Yeah. This is some weird check-in tool. Just hit check-in or write a commit message that says, okay, I merged this in. And then commit, hit the commit button on the side there.
Yeah.
This is great. I love this GUI.
It's a true Linus commit that I did there.
Yep.
Commit.
And then one more time.
Oh my days.
Lock it in.
Oh, I hit just the commit button twice.
Yeah, you got to hit it twice.
Oh.
It's a twofer. All right. So this is how you do it, right?
Yeah.
And now you run BK changes and you can see your new thing, right? There's some interesting things that we also see here that you don't really see in Git. It's really trying to do sort of incremental change sets, right? So you have 1.15, which is I think you cloned it at 1.13, right? You made some changes. And then when you branch and merge back in, it goes to 1.14.1.1, right? So it's kind of, once it sees diversion, right? Like you did 2 15s or 2 16s at a time, right? And it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to renumber these because there's been 2 people try to do the same thing at the same time. And so I'll renumber them and have sort of one thing in this particular repo. So you can look at this a little bit. You can say, let's exit out of this. You could do BK revtool.
Exactly. Like that, no minuses?
Yep. And it gives you this cool little like visualization, right?
That's kind of cool.
And then you can click on one of these and say like, what did this one look like, right?
Yeah.
And you can do a diff or view the change set. There's a view change set button there.
Yep.
You can actually say like, what was that particular change set? Sorry, we have a lot of GUI stuff that's coming up in the middle of the thing here, but like there's nice little tools around this, right?
It's actually really friendly.
If you get a merge conflict, you could say BK unpull
Right.
and it would say, never mind, and it would undo sort of the pull when you were in a merge conflict and be like, okay, never mind, I won't try to do this anymore.
So if I was kind of in the middle of the work, thought I could pull in some other people's changes, and it turns out to be a massive conflict, I can say, like, actually, do that later, please, and I can continue
But what if there's a git unpull? Like, what an interesting idea is an unpull. Look, it's fascinating to me from the git standpoint. There's some of these that are very familiar, right? Yeah. And a lot of this terminology comes from BitKeeper.
Right.
Like, they had this idea of, but if there's other things that are very different, like if you run bklog, it's a very different command, right?
Right.
What we think of git log is bk changes. It's saying, what are the change sets? What's the sort of history of change set? This is what's like the history of each individual file. Like it's this combination of kind of git and then SCCS or RCS, right? Of this file-based sort of versioning system. The other stuff you can do is I mean, you could do like bk export and get a patch. So do bk changes again so we can see some. Let's say what was an interesting one you did? This one, 1.14. So
1.14?
Let's export that as a patch so we can send it to a mailing list, right? So you do bk export -t patch, but no space in between. Actually, all of these had no space in between, which makes it interesting to look at. And then at the very end, -r 1.14. No, sorry. -r 1.14. So no space.
-r 1.14.
So do that, and then you should get a unified diff patch. Yep. So
cool.
So if you want to do this and then email it somewhere or something like that, you could say, what is this particular like change set? And if you have multiple files, it will give you a unified diff, right? So it's pretty cool. Awesome. You can also do interesting things like revert this. So you can say bk cset, like change set.
Yep.
And then -x.
-x.
And then whatever revision you want to undo. So let's try 1.14, see if that works. Actually, it's kind of it's before a merge, so let's see what happens. Yeah. But like you can say, let's undo this one, right? It's like a reverse cherry pick, sort of. And now let's look at the file and see what happened.
So I'll go take a look at the
license. No, it was the license file, wasn't it?
No,
it was the README. Yeah, by magic. Okay, so there's no more by magic, right?
No more by magic.
Yeah. And that essentially creates a new change set, and you can push that new sort of reverted change set up if you want.
So did the BK changes? Yeah. We've now got this extra.
So now you have this nice thing that's like, we didn't exclude on this particular change set, and so we took it back out.
I see.
The other interesting thing is that this is a thing that's difficult to do in Git. That it was a little bit easier in BitKeeper is you can add comments after the fact, right? So you can say bk comment and then -C and then so let's do 1.12.
1.12, sure.
So now go in, edit the comments, right? Be like, okay, here's some new comments, right? Or I have stuff on new file or on the change set as a whole. Like one is on the change set and one is on the file, right? And then edit it or exit the thing and then be like, okay, run bk changes again. And you can say, I went through and I modified this, right? And I can push those changes up.
I see.
So it's kind of nice. Like you can go and kind of edit. It's not editing the commits because there's not this sort of SHA-based thing that Git had a dependency on over time. It is a little bit kind of nicer in some ways, right? Like, but the big thing actually that I want to do is show one last thing and then we can be done.
Sure.
You may have noticed there's no branching and merging. There's merging.
Right.
And there's kind of branching. There's branching in that you have a completely separate clone of the repository.
Yeah.
And essentially in BitKeeper, like there's no branch, there's no checkout, there's no switch. Yeah. Right? Like you're not switching between branches in this mode. The way that they did it was actually closer to how Git does work trees, right? It's saying kind of, and you can do this with Git too, and you can see maybe a way in which this was impacted by this, but in a way that almost nobody uses Git anymore, which is you can clone locally. Have you ever done that?
Clone from one repo to another?
In like between two directories.
I think I have done, but it was a very niche
scenario.
Rare.
It's very rare. Yeah. But the point of BitKeeper was to do that. That was essentially branching, right? And so you would say, I'm going to clone Linus's tree
Yes.
And then I'm going to clone that into like a daughter directory that's next to it. And then I'm going to work on that and then push into my other sort of checkout, and then push that somewhere that Linus can then pull from, right? But it was all pull based. So it wasn't I create a thing and work on it and then merge it. It was I would clone it. That's the branch. I'll work on that, and then I'll go back to or I'll push it into the original one, or I'll go back to the original one and pull from the one that I. So what a lot of people would do is they'd have multiple checkouts, and they were all hard linked, so it wouldn't take up a bunch of space. And Git will do this as well if you clone locally. And say, I'm going to do a little bit of work here, and then I'm going to build up a change set that's unique to this problem set or this domain, and then I'll pull it in and do the merge work like we went through here. And that was kind of how merging and branching was done, right?
So kind of emulating branches by cloning from one to another. So if you wanted like a local master branch, then you'd have that clone, and then you'd make feature branches off it by then cloning that local master.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really think about it, I think, as master, right? Like that wasn't, or like mainline. It was like topics. Like every clone was a topic. It was a thing that you were working on. It could have like a patch series that was kind of being built up in it, and you could move them back and forth between each other. So if it was a daughter, you could just push it. If it wasn't, if it was a peer, you could pull from it right into that, and it would just be like, what changes do you have or not have? And I'll just do the difference, but I'll immediately apply them.
So it's very much feature based, really.
It was exactly. It was topic based, right? But this really helped with the I'm doing patches and mailing them and or tarballs and stuff like that. It was definitely better than that. It was definitely better than Subversion or CVS, right? That was very centralized and needed commit bits. You could do these commits, these patch series and work and stuff offline. Nobody needed to tell you what you could and couldn't do. Like it was this very, very interesting thing. And so you can kind of see how Linus liked this, for one, right? And it was built at Linux scale, right? So this was built for the Linux guys. So it was built for hundreds of thousands of files. Like it was built for a relatively large scale.
Big repos.
Exactly. This has been fun. I like going through the history.
It's actually really cool.
You've never used BitKeeper before.
I've used Git since I've been 12 years old, and I've never used anything else.
What I find really interesting about these early tools, these sort of Unix-based tools, is that they have a combination, right? They're like actually, if you look, one more thing, and then we'll move on. Make a change to a file. To readme or something. And then run. What they want you to do is not bk delta and bk commit. What they want you to do is run bk citool. In all the documentation, they say run bk citool. And this is the check-in tool. In the early days, this is kind of how a lot of people were doing kernel development. They were like, I've edited these 5 files, and I'll do the check-in with this GUI tool, and I'll push it up to my tree, or I'll have it in one of my subtrees or something like that. And a person would have 8 sort of sub clones like in their working directories, like all these different working directories that they're working on, and it's just a very different way of working than most of us work with Git now, right? But like this is definitely why Git exists and like how it came to be, and I find it really, really fascinating.
But these sort of little pop-out tools are really interesting because we're building a GUI client, and we've got people going, oh, can it be a CLI? Because I cannot leave my terminal, and it's just like, well, I'm going to have some things in the terminal. I'm going to run a command, and I'm out in a GUI app, where a GUI app makes more sense. So that's really interesting.
You are probably one of the last surviving people on the planet that has used BitKeeper for something. This influenced everything. This influenced Git and Mercurial and Monotone and everything all these distributed systems that came after it. And it's kind of fascinating to think of where BitKeeper would be if they had a better business model. Most of it was that they wanted to charge for the client and nobody wanted to pay, and then have free hosting, whereas they really could have switched it and had a free client and a GitHub, and then they'd be the new GitHub, right? And I'm sure Larry is probably kicking himself to this day.
You beat him to the punch.
Sorry, Larry.